Continuing on, we're still working through examples with Stace as he tries to do what? Don't lose sight of the goal. He's trying to show you the correct definition of free will using examples of ordinary meaning through common usage. So now he says, at a recent murder trial in Trenton, some of the accused had signed confessions, but afterwards asserted that they had done so under police duress. Okay, so go ahead and define duress for me as stated in the other converted, some of you did a converted online session prior to this one. So for those of you who did that, you'll remember what I said about definitions. For those of you who have not defined anything during a converted session, I'm going to repeat the instructions. But what I would like for you to do is to give me the definition for, or a definition for duress. Make sure your definition does not have any version of the word duress in it. And make sure you pick a definition that fits really well with what has been discussed so far and the examples that are coming. In other words, you have to think critically about the definition for duress. Find the best definition given the intellectual academic context, the concepts being explored, and the debate being explored. Okay, so then he says the following exchange, and handwrite it right here. Oh, also don't forget to provide URLs in the comment box. When you upload this, there's a comment text box. Include the URL for that, and then also name the dictionary that you use here. So, new example. So I believe that this is going to be example 6. Did you sign the confession of your own free will? So signing the confession is the event, and the question is whether somebody did it of their own free will. Prisoner, no, I signed it because the police beat me up. Okay, so there's the cause. Okay. Again, whatever I have said about the cause claim or the claim with the cause applies to this example 6 as well. The statement functions as both logical support for the conclusion that someone did or did not do something of their own free will, but it's also a metaphysical explanation as to why an event occurred. Now suppose that a philosopher had been a member of the jury. We could imagine the conversation taking place in the jury room. This conversation. Okay, so now we have example 7. Foreman of the jury. The prisoner says that he signed the confession, so that's the event, because he was beaten, so that's supposed to be the cause, and not of his own free will. Okay, so notice how in these examples, cause and effect, causes and events are being connected to whether somebody might deserve moral or legal punishment. Philosopher, this is quite irrelevant, let's put a triangle over that, to the case. There is no such thing as free will. So this is a free will denier. Okay, we'll write that. An example. Well, actually, the others deny. Oh, well, this one's saying there is no. In the other dialogues, this is really important. In the other dialogues, the speakers are never saying that there is no free will. But in the other dialogues, in some of the examples, the speakers are claiming that they did not have free will when it came to a particular event and what caused it. But in this example, what makes this example different is that a speaker is claiming that there is no such thing as free will, period. So an example of what Stace calls a free will denier. It's supposed to be an N, a free will denier. So again, let me make that point. You might even want to write it down. I'm not going to make you, but you can. That this is the first instance where somebody claims that there is no free will whatsoever. In the other examples, no one is saying that there's no free will whatsoever, but in some examples, they're saying that there's an event in which free will was not expressed, and that those are not one and the same kind of claim. All right, so Foreman, do you mean to say that it makes no difference whether he signed because, so again, so signing something is the event, and he's asking a question because his conscience made him, so right, cause, want to tell the truth, or because he was beaten. Okay, So here, notice that he's saying, what is he identifying as the initial cause? Conscience. So your conscience can be a cause of something, right? So conscience made him want. So this became an event, right? But then it transitioned into a cause itself. So that means an event that became a cause of what? Telling the truth. An event. Okay, so in other words, he's saying we're identifying two causes here. Identified two causes. And the speaker's asking, is there no difference between the two causes? All right, so then what does the philosopher say? None at all. Whether he was caused to sign, that's the event, by a beating, so there's a cause, so we can call this a cause, or by some other desire of his own, so that's another cause. The desire to tell the truth, for example, in either case, the signing was what? Causally determined. Okay, so over here, I want you to write metaphysically determined. Okay, so when he says causally determined, he's using that in the way that we've been using metaphysically determined. So write metaphysically determined and then a sub-bullet and then write thesis of universal causation. Again, pause and rewind the video as needed. All right, so then notice that what he has here, right? A conclusion indicator. Therefore, in neither case did he act of his own free will. So let's go ahead and put brackets around this because we're going to identify an argument. So we know that this is some kind of conclusion, but we're not going to label it yet. And then he says, since there is no such thing as free will. So we're going to put brackets around that. The question whether he signed of his own free will ought not to be discussed by us. So we're going to put brackets around that. All right, so let's go ahead and put brackets around some other parts of this paragraph. Whether he was caused to sign by a beating or by some other desire of his own free will, in either case, the signing was causally determined. Okay, so let's go ahead and shorten the statement right here. The whole statement is this, but we can cut out the contextual information here, and the statement will still make sense. He's saying, in either case, his signing was causally determined. So we're going to count this as statement 1 in an argument, and we're going to label this as a premise. Okay. In either case, his signing was causally determined, and in neither case, so this is an inference, right, from 1 to 2, so this is going to be statement 2, in neither case did he act of his own free will. Okay, now, that is a kind of conclusion, but I want to hold off on that. He says, since there is no such thing as a free will. So since is telling us that he's probably giving us a premise. So let's go ahead and do that. So statement 3 is, there is no such thing as free will. That's going to count as a premise. All right. So in either case, his signing was causally determined. Therefore, in neither case did he act of his own free will. There is no such thing as free will. And then we have this statement right here, 4. This is going to be a conclusion as well. So this is kind of a main conclusion, whereas this one is, in this context, a minor conclusion. One way to look at the structure of this argument with the diagram would be to say that he has this starting assumption as a premise, and that is statement 3, okay, a premise. And then he has statement 1, another premise, right? And his idea, of course, is something is cause he doesn't have free will. These are kind of working jointly together. This is going to be a different kind of diagram. That leads to his conclusion that what? That in neither case did he act of his own free will. So then we're going to do statement 2, minor conclusion, which leads to the main conclusion in statement 4. Okay, so this is a metaphysical conclusion about what? Whether something was done of his own free will, whereas this one is a what we might call a procedural conclusion, right? Like what kind of procedures should be used in terms of questioning, right? Uh, Questioning people who are on the stand, for example, when a trial is going on. But the metaphysical part is right here, and then this leads to this metaphysical conclusion leads to this procedural conclusion in the context of what is going on in court and a line of questioning that is being conducted by a foreman of a jury.